Hello friends, my name is Sumit Sarda and in this video we will discuss summary of Indian Accounting Standard 115. This video will be in simple English. Those students who want to see the same in Hindi just for paper series is available separately in the playlist given. Those students who want to buy the fast track videos for financial reporting English, the same link has been shared in the description given below. These are summary notes in which we are going to discuss all the points of Indian Accounting Standard 115. These notes will also be available in the description link given below. Okay, so before starting, do subscribe the channel. We will be uploading more videos in future related to just for paper series English video revision for all Indian accounting standards. Okay, and if you like the summary video, do if you like the particular video, do like the video as well in the link in YouTube, and also do comment which further videos of simple English, the language we are using here, you want me to come up with videos in coming days. So all the best for exams as well. Starting with, this standard is applicable in all cases except where lease income is recognized as per Ind AS 116. Insurance income is recognized as per 117. This is yet to be implemented, not in your course, so won't be asked. Financial instruments, for them we have the standard 109. We also have the standard 32. Moreover, there are some financial instruments related to business combination where another entity is acquired. So 27, 28, 110, 111, 103. So for financial instruments, all these standards are applicable. Moreover, if you enter into a non-monetary exchange transaction with a person in same business for same field transaction, suppose I am in teaching and I have to teach certain students, okay, and there is another person who is also in teaching, who is teaching same subject. We exchange our locations. Their students I am teaching in my place, and in my place the other person is teaching the same students. We are in the same field exchanging the transaction. These are non-monetary exchange. I don't recognize revenue from what the other person we have exchanged with. Like the students given, his students received by me is not a monetary, is not revenue for me. Revenue for me will be from the same students from whom I have taken the fees. The exchange transaction won't be considered to be revenue in this particular case. Okay, the most common example given by ICAI is, suppose there is a video advertisement channel, like there's a channel that places ads, exchanges a transaction, non-monetary transaction with another video advertisement channel. They ask them that you place an ad in our ad in your videos and we will place your ads in my video. Okay, such types of transactions are not revenue related. So video advertisement channel will not recognize any revenue for what the rights they have received from the other video channel. However, if this is a newspaper advertisement, then they are in two different fields. They are related to two different fields. Hence, video channel person will also recognize the revenue, and newspaper advertisement person will also recognize the revenue of what he has received from the other person. Okay, this is covered. But if I talk about video advertisement in same field, not covered. So as I told you, these are just summary videos. Okay, so we'll just discuss in brief each and every point. Revenue is recognized based on 5 points. 1, there should be a contract. 2, every person in the contract should know their performance obligation. 3, transaction price should be defined for the performance obligations, or there should be a transaction price defined. 4, we need to allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation if there are multiple performance obligations. And 5th, as and when performance obligations are satisfied, we recognize the revenue. Moving towards the step 1, identify contract with customer. Now, what do we mean by contract? Contract means when two people who are independent and they are knowledgeable person come together and they want to carry out a particular activity, so they enter, like they come together with enforceable rights over each other and enforceable obligations over each other. So I have a right to receive something from you and I have an obligation to provide you something. Same way from your side. So this is known as a contract. Okay, the contract may be written, the contract can also be oral. A contract exists if the 5 points are satisfied. One, there are two parties, they are independent, they have approved, both of them have approved that they are going to carry out this activity, they are committed to carry out this particular activity, this performance. Okay, each party knows what their rights are, each party knows what their obligations are. 2. 3, each party knows what payment they are going to receive. Okay. 4, transaction has commercial substance, means it is legally enforceable. 5, it is probable that whatever consideration specified will be received. So if all 5 conditions are satisfied, there is a contract and hence revenue can be recognized. Institute may ask you that it is not probable the amount that is received, that is given in the contract, will be received. Hence it is not a contract. However, suppose the amount specified is 1 lakh, but you are expecting 50,000 to be received. So 50,000 will be considered to be a revenue over here. Okay. Next one. There are multiple contracts that have been entered. Should we consider them distinct contracts or they should be considered as a combined single contract? So they can be considered as a single contract if they are 3 points are satisfied. They were negotiated as a single package. That means we have negotiated with the other person that to perform this one contract, in other contract there will be some discount that will be available, and both of them are to be done. If someone cancels one of the contract, he will not be able to carry out the other contract as well. For example, if a particular school needs to collect students from north, south, okay, east, west. So now they have given this contract to a bus service provider and it has been negotiated as a single package. So if he doesn't want to take up the contract of west, he cannot accept for north, south and east also. Okay. So negotiated as a single package. Consideration is interdependent. Consideration of one contract depends on the other, and actually here it is written, or it is and overall cost of the contract is represents a single performance obligation. Okay, no, this is not and, this is or sorry, my mistake. Or overall contract represents a single performance obligation, though there are multiple contracts, but all these contracts combined together actually shows there is a single performance that is to be done. So suppose there is a building to be made, you have entered in a contract to first contract to construct first floor, second contract to construct second floor, third contract to construct third floor, fourth contract to construct fourth floor. So there are multiple floor contracts that have been entered. Obviously each contract is interdependent on the other, and it is a single performance obligation, hence it will be combined and treated as a single contract. Contract modifications, one of the most important points of Indian Accounting Standard 115. Contract modifications are accounted separately if there is an increase in scope of the contract. Suppose initially you enter in a contract to purchase 100 units at 150 per unit, then you add up 50 units to be purchased at 150 per unit. This is modification in contract. This will be treated as separate contract and not a part of existing contract if there is increase in scope and the scope, the units are distinct from the original goods. I don't mean to say that these goods needs to be of a different thing. Like earlier there was a contract to buy 100 Samsung phones. Now there are further 50 Samsung phones that have been added. Contract is distinct because each phone has its own distinct identity. Remember this. Okay. And change in contract reflects its standalone selling price. This should reflect its standalone selling price. If this does not reflect its standalone selling price, let's say the price is 120. Why is the price reduced? Because in earlier contract there was some defects. To recover that amount, this amount has been reduced to 120. Let's assume. Then it is not considered as a separate contract. In that case, we account for them in there are two possibilities of accounting. First possibility, if the goods are distinct. If the goods are distinct, suppose there was earlier contract to provide 100 units at 150 per unit. Okay, 70 delivered, 30 were to be delivered, and you have increased contract by further 50 units at 120 per unit. This is not its independent fair value. In that case, they are considered, how are they accounted? They are accounted considering these to be, if they are distinct goods, yes, they are distinct. How will we account for them? We will consider the old contract is terminated with delivery of 70 units. Now this 30 units at 150 plus 50 units at 120 divided by total 80 units is considered to be the price for this contract. Okay, if they are distinct goods, this is how the accounting will be done. Replacement of original contract with new contract. If remaining goods under contract are distinct, remaining is 30 of existing and 50 new, are distinct from already performed contract. But if they are not distinct, then adjustment is done to the existing contract as well. What do I mean by that? Let me just show to you in short. 70 units were delivered, 100 units at 150 per unit was the contract. Now you have entered into 50 more units at 150 per unit, and they are not distinct. What you will do, 100 into 150 plus 50 into 120 divided by 150 units will be considered to be the contract price. Okay, let me just calculate it. $140. For these 70 units, the revenue recognized is 70 into 150, right? This is recognized. Now what we will do? We will reverse 10 rupees, because 150 is what is recognized, but 140 should have been recognized. We will reverse 10 rupees per unit for 70 units of revenue, 700, if they are not distinct. So remember, we have talking about 3. If they are distinct, they are counted separately. If they are not distinct, if the standalone selling price reflects the fair value, they are counted separately. If standalone selling price does not reflect the fair value, but the goods are distinct, they are accounted as per the first point, the remaining goods multiplied by price to be received plus new goods multiplied by price to be received divided by total number of goods. But if these are not distinct, then they are accounted in this pattern: complete original contract plus the new contract for total price, and then we recognize the revenue. I hope it is clear. Okay. Step 2, now we need to identify the performance obligation. Performance obligation could be a single good to be provided or multiple goods to be provided, single service to be provided or multiple service to be provided, or a mix and match of both of them. Okay, they can be considered to be a performance obligation. But suppose to perform these, there will be some setup charge, or maybe some admin charges. They are not considered to be performance obligations. Okay, they are not considered to be performance obligations. Remember this particular point. Step 3, transaction price. Transaction price means what you expect to receive in exchange for those goods collected. Now this has been splitted into various parts. There is a fixed consideration, that is what you are going to receive. It is considered transaction price. But suppose there is a finance component. What do I mean by finance component? When the goods are received and when the payment will be made, there is a huge time gap between the two. Or when the payment is made earlier and goods will be given later, and there is a huge time gap between the two. What do I mean by huge time gap? Just look at this practical expedient. The time gap is more than 12 months. So if it is 12 months or less, we don't consider there is a financing component. If the time gap is more than 12 months, then we consider there is a financing component. Okay. So if the time gap is more than 12 months between goods received and payment, or first payment then goods received, then what we do is we consider the difference between transaction price given and the product's cash selling price at the point of transfer of control. At the point of transfer of control, we consider the difference between the two to be the interest component. Okay, let's see 2 points. 1st April, 15th April following year. Okay, 1st April year 1, 15th April year 2. 100 rupees is paid, and this is the point at which control will be transferred. If someone pays for the goods at this point, they will have to pay 120. So we consider 20 to be interest cost. Okay, I hope it is clear. Now suppose 1st April year 1 goods are transferred, okay, and 15th April year 2 amount paid is 120. If someone pays the price over here, he could have paid 100 and received the goods. In this case, 20 is considered to be the interest cost. I hope this concept is clear to you. So that is what they mean as financing component. However, we don't calculate IRR. If borrowing cost rate is, let's say, 6%, let's assume in first case payment is received but goods will be given after 1 year. Payment is received but goods will be given after 1 year. If we borrow in market, borrowing cost is 6%. Borrowing cost is 6%. In that case, see, this is a normal question where you don't know the borrowing cost. But if you know the borrowing cost is 6%, we consider 100 to be loan because we have not given goods, 6 to be interest cost and not 20, 6 to be interest cost. So 106 is revenue to be recognized. Okay, 106 will be the revenue to be recognized. In second case, we have given the goods but not received money. The person to whom we have given goods, borrowing cost rate is 6%. So if borrowing cost rate is given, it will be applicable. If borrowing cost rate is not given, 20 is the interest cost. If borrowing cost rate is given, we consider 100 to be revenue and 6 to be interest income, because now we have given the goods and we will receive payment later. In previous question, we have received amount in advance and goods will be given later. I hope it is clear. Okay. Then there is variable consideration. There is some amount which is variable. It could be concession, discount, bonus. It could be in any pattern. So suppose this amount, whatever there is, let's say that if you complete the work early, you will get bonus. If you complete the work late, it will be a penalty. It is considered variable consideration. Suppose 1 lakh is fixed consideration and they say if you complete the work early, 20,000 is bonus, and if you complete the work late, 20,000 is penalty. So the range of payment is between 80,000 to 1,20,000. This is fixed consideration. Okay. And 40,000 will be variable consideration. Is variable consideration part of revenue? If it is expected that it will be received, it is part of revenue. But if you are not sure, constraining factor, then you consider it as revenue when received. When received, we will consider it as a revenue. Okay. Now, if you want to consider it as part of revenue earlier, if it is probable that it will be received and you want it to be a part of revenue, there are two methods: expected value method, most likely method. Expected value method is when we think that 20,000 will be received with 20% probability, 30,000 will be received with 50% probability, and 40,000 will be received with 30% probability. So we will take weighted average. When there are multiple possibilities, we consider expected value method. But if there are only two possibilities, either 40,000 will be received or 40,000 will not be received. There are only two possibilities. Then we consider most likely method. Is it likely that the amount will be received? It is considered as part of revenue. If it is not likely to be received, then it is not considered as part of revenue. However, if you are not sure, constraining factors, then when it is received, only at that point we will recognize the revenue. Okay. So consideration if payable to the customer. Everything, all this that we are reading is a part of transaction price, step 3. If it says that suppose you are paying something to the customer, You buy a 5-star and there is a 3 rupee Paytm coupon inside it. So customer is not giving you any goods, customer is not giving you any service. The revenue to be recognized, if 5-star is of 10 rupees and you are giving Paytm 3 rupees, 7 will be considered as revenue. However, if customer is giving you goods having fair value 3 rupees, 10 is your revenue, 3 is your expense. If he is giving you goods, so there is exchange. You give him something, he gives you something, and he pays you 7 rupees. So 3 is expense and 10 is revenue. However, if goods don't have the same fair value, okay, you give him 10 rupees, okay, customer gives you goods worth 2 rupees, fair value, but you pay him 3 rupees, you have got goods worth 2 rupees, so 2 is your expense, but you have paid 3 rupees, you have paid 1 rupee extra, so 1 is deducted from revenue and 9 is considered to be revenue. 9 revenue, 2 expense, that is what is given over here. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Just a summary giving you a brief picture of what Ind AS 115 is all about. Non-cash consideration, as I had told you, I am giving you video ads, you are giving me newspaper ads. We are not in same field, so you are my customer. Okay, you are my customer. If in same field, it is not part of this standard. If in different fields, then part of this standard. So revenue to be recognized by me will be at fair value. Okay, fair value of consideration received, what you are giving me, fair value of what you are giving me is considered to be the part of revenue. Okay, if I am not able to measure it, then I will measure it with respect to selling price. What is the fair value of what I am giving you? First point recognition, fair value of what I am receiving. If I am not able to measure that, then fair value of what I have given will be measured. Okay, I hope it is clear. Step 4, now we need to allocate all these transaction price determined in step 3 to all the performance obligations identified in step 2. They are based on the standalone selling price of each performance obligation. How do we determine the standalone market price? In which the transaction actually takes place. If you are not able to assess that, then we consider adjusted market approach to determine the price, or maybe cost plus some margin. Let's say I want to earn 20% from each product. Then it is considered adjusted expected cost plus approach. Okay. This is used in very restrictive cases. For example, A is sold in market for 100, B is sold for 50. These are considered standalone market price. If we don't know that, A cost is 80, B cost is 40. We add 20% margin to it. Let's say 25% margin to it. So this is 100. I add 25% to it. This is 50. These are first two approaches. Now we don't know the price. Let's say A is sold for 100. B sells between 40 to 60. B may sell at any price between 40 to 60. Any price between 40 to 60. Okay. We have taken combined amount 150. We have taken combined from the customer 150. 50 is considered selling price of B. Residual approach. If B is sold at any price below that, above that, in a range of price, B is sold in the market at a highly volatile price, there is a wide range of price at which B is sold in that market, like I said, 40 to 60. If this range was 55 to 60, then I cannot consider residual value 50 to be transaction price of B. Cannot, because the range is 55 to 60. If the value, residual value lies in the range, between the range, then we consider the residual approach, else we cannot apply residual approach. Okay, so if B has a fixed selling price, we cannot apply residual approach. I hope it is clear. Now, if there is any discount that is given, for example, A is sold for 100, B is sold for 50. but combined we have charged 130. So we know we have given a discount of 20 rupees. So 20 will be apportioned between A and B in the ratio of 100:50. Okay, and then we determine the transaction price. I hope it is clear. Step 5, we have to recognize the revenue. Revenue recognition is at two ways, either over the period of time or at a point of time. Over the period of time means revenue is recognized as and when performance obligations are satisfied. At a point of time means when complete control is transferred or complete performance obligation is done. Revenue is recognized over the period of time if three conditions, any of the three conditions is satisfied. 1. Customer simultaneously receives the service or consumes the benefit that you are providing. So there are these cleaning people who come to your home every day. They clean the house every day. So you are simultaneously consuming the benefit of the service. Revenue recognition is over the period of time. I hope point 1 is clear. Point 2, when the entity enhances customer's asset. So I have a particular property in which paint work is to be done. One of the wall has been painted, others are yet to be painted. My asset value is enhanced. So revenue recognition is over the period of time. Or third, the asset being created by the entity does not have alternate use, or alternate use will cost huge alteration or modification. So this particular property, the other person that we are talking about, okay, what I mean to say over here is this particular property with alternate use, I mean this is specifically being made for the customer, In that case, revenue is recognized over the period of time and does not have not at a point of time. If none of the conditions are satisfied, revenue is recognized at the end when control is transferred, risk and reward is transferred at a point of time. Okay, so there are two methods of recognizing revenue. One is known as output method, one is input method. Input method means cost that I have incurred till date divided by total expected cost. So it is internal data. Output data means that there are targets that are given, that let's say 20% of the work should be completed or 30% work should be completed. If work is completed till this stage, this much percentage work is done. So those targets are known as output method. Okay, so there is a concept of cost recognition. Recognition of cost as an asset in Ind AS 115, contract cost. Contract cost is recognized. It says that if the cost we are talking about is not covered in any other Ind AS, then this standard is applicable. This standard says that you need to capitalize the cost, provided there is this incremental cost that is incurred, and cost is incurred only to earn this revenue, which means this cost will not be incurred if this revenue target was not available. So I am doing some construction work for your building, If so, I will get some revenue. I am contractor. If your building is not being constructed, I will not incur these costs. So these are incremental cost, and these are done only to earn revenue. If customer revenue was not supposed to be received, I wouldn't have incurred these costs. So they don't include admin cost, and they are expected to be recovered. That means you will recover these costs. Remember, they do not cover tender deposits. Tender deposits are given to get a contract. So if you don't get a contract, still to apply for the contract, you should have given tender deposit, even if it is non-refundable. Okay, so these are not covered in incremental cost. Institute generally asks you question on tender deposits. Okay, so specifically identifiable, and if costs are specifically identifiable and recognized resources used as performance obligation in future expected to be recovered. Now there are some specific cases in which revenue is to be recognized. We are just trying to cover a bit of them over here. Licensing, like intellectual property. So intellectual property, if it is part of goods and service, not separable, revenue is recognized along with goods and service. So like I have purchased a laptop. So we are selling laptop along with operating system. Operating system can be used only with goods and service, not distinctly. So they are considered for revenue recognition along with goods and service. Okay. But if the intellectual property is distinct, revenue will be recognized either over the period of time or at a point of time depending on the license. Okay. So over the period of time, if entity undertakes activities which affect the intellectual property, like suppose you have purchased the advertisement rights for a particular cricket team, let's say this Mumbai Indians. Okay. So if they win the match, your product sale will increase. If they lose the match, your product sale will decrease, right? So with their whatever they do has an impact over your service as well. So if they are doing something good, even your value enhances. So undertakes activities related to intellectual property, they are undertaking, they are playing matches, and your product, your rights are exposed to those activities they are doing. It can be positive, it can be negative. If they are not doing anything, they have just given you the rights and the rights are purely yours, with their impact will have nothing over your product. Revenue recognition is at a point of time. At a point of time. Suppose you have purchased musical rights of a particular composition. Now music is made, it will not be revised, right? So whatever, positive, negative, all impact goes to you. Everything goes to you. So these are at a point of time revenue recognition. I hope it is clear. If there is some upfront fees that is paid, it is non-refundable to you. Revenue is recognized generally over the period of time the service will be provided to the customer. However, if this amount is given for some specific goods or service, then revenue is recognized in relation to those goods or service. These services should not be activation fees, setup fees. They don't include activation and setup fees. Okay. So if they are related to specific goods and service, then revenue is recognized for those goods and service. If no, then along with the service that is to be given to the customer in future. I hope it is clear. So this is what this standard is all about. I hope the video has been helpful to you. Do like the video if you have liked the short summary of what we have done. If you want to buy the fast track videos, link is given below. And do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you and all the best for the exams.